Alright, we are going to go over how to do the setup for the producing and displaying experimental data lab. First thing I would do is get the ring stand with the iron ring and the Bunsen burner under it. And what you want to do is, before you have any glassware on there, check the height of the Bunsen burner flame to make sure it's a good height, because you might have to move this ring up or down. You don't want it too far down and you won't want it too far up, because then your material will never boil. So this to me looks pretty good. So I'm going to turn that off now. Put the wire gauze on top because we will need that. And we're going to use a graduated cylinder to get 150 milliliters. Now I already have some water in there, but we're using DI water. And what I would do is take the top off of the DI water and pour it in till it's about 150 milliliters. And then once you get close, put the cap back on and then add the rest. And remember, you measure from the meniscus. So you want to get it to 150 milliliters according to that meniscus. And now once you have that, add that to the 250 milliliter beaker. Now people get confused a lot. They see the 200 here and they think this is the 200 milliliter beaker, but you go by this number because there's a little room above that. So this is the 250 milliliter beaker. Add the DI water to it. Add in boiling chips. Boiling chips promote smooth boiling. These do not dissolve, so we're going to collect these back. 2 usually does a good trick. And what happens is, instead of getting one large bubble of steam, you get a bunch of small bubbles forming around those boiling chips, so it works pretty well. So now we know the ring stand is set up well. We are going to need a thermometer. We have a 150 milliliter thermometer and a thermometer clamp. The thermometer clamp is a lot smaller than a test tube clamp, so don't use a test tube clamp. Use the thermometer clamp, and I'll show you a test tube clamp for comparison. A test tube clamp is something more like this size. All right, so now when you set this up, what I think works well is take that thermometer and just lightly tap the bottom to the beaker and then just raise it up a little bit. You want that thermometer as close to the bottom as you can get it without it actually touching. And if you have to, you can move the thermometer up and down like this too. So you want it nice and low. The other thing you want to pay attention to is make sure the numbers on the thermometer are facing you. If they're facing the wrong way, you're going to have a real hard time reading that. You want them facing you. All right, so this first run, we are just doing pure water. At this point, you can turn on the Bunsen burner and start heating this. You do not start timing it until the water starts to boil. Then what you do is every minute you write down the temperature for 5 minutes. So your temperatures on your data table, you shouldn't start writing anything down until you're around 100 degrees Celsius. It might be slightly above or slightly below because our thermometers are not real accurate, but it should be around 100 degrees, and then just write it down for every minute. Once you get that done for 5 minutes, turn off the gas at the gas jet, and the level of this water has probably come down a little bit because the water evaporated, so we could fix that. But what you want to do now for the next run, we are going to add in table salt. So you have a certain amount measured, whether it's 10 grams or 20 grams, and you just dump it in. And you don't even have to worry about stirring it at this point, because when it's heating, it will cause enough motion for that stuff to get mixed up. Do not take the beaker off and dump the hot water out, because then you're going to have to reheat it again, and it's just going to take more time than it needs. So what I would do is add water to make up for the amount that you lost. And what actually would work better is if you add the water before you add in the salt. Bring it back up to about 150 milliliters on here, then dump the salt in and turn the Bunsen burner on and start it heating again. Now you saw what happened is when I added that salt in, the level of the water went up. So really what I should have done is add the water first, then dump the salt in, start it heating again. It will boil much faster this time because you started out with water that was already very close to boiling. You do the same thing. Once it starts boiling, write down the temperature every minute for 5 minutes. And then if you're doing another run, turn off the gas again and add more water to bring the level of the water back up, add more salt. That's only if you're doing another run. At that point, you have all your data, let this cool, and you can start going over the material on the back, making the graph and answering the questions. But that is the setup.